Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome to Nightlight, everybody. So glad you could join us. This is going to be a fun evening. But first, let me thank Ken Quiethawk for his amazing intro. I so appreciate his being with us every night. And please check out his website and him. Native storytellers have an amazing talent and gift for preserving history and cosmology in stories that they pass down generation to generation. It's something we should all be aware of and probably try to pass down our own personal family histories to our children down that way so that they are able to retain the history of a family. So tonight I have Robert Sullivan IV with us again, and I'm very excited about this book because it was a long time in coming. It comes in at over 800 pages. And he has been everyone's favorite Freemason. He strikes again with Cinema Symbolism 3, Mysteries of the Occult, Hollywood Unveiled. Applying his expert and objective observations, he analyzes a new slate of movies revealing Tinseltown's esoteric and dark secrets. Some of the films that he dissected are The Mummy, The Witch, Lolita, The Joker, Dark City, The Red Shoes, Midsommar, Eraserhead, Pan's Labyrinth, Dark Knight, The Shape of Water, and many other ones, and of course, the vast mythology of Twin Peaks. From Gnosticism to Freemasonry to black magic and Kabbalah, no rock has been left unturned, and I promise you that's true. So just also be aware that this is not for everyone because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Robert is a historian, philosopher, writer, antiquarian, lay theologian, mystic, jurist, radio, TV personality, showman, best-selling author, CEO, and attorney. And in 1997, he became a Freemason, having joined the Amicable St. John's Lodge number 25 in Baltimore, Maryland, and he became a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason in 1999. He's an amazing man with an amazing amount of information inside that head of his. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Hey, Barbara. Thanks for having me on Nightlight. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, I'll tell you. I don't know. I think between Mark and I, you've been on the show maybe 5 or 6 times, and always you bring new and different material. However, this last book, in my humble opinion, should have been a 3-book box set. 800 pages was overwhelming, and it's so intense that for me, if it had been 3 separate books or even 2 separate books, it would have been easier for me to grasp everything because it's a big book. It's a heavy book. So, but I loved it. The material in it was phenomenal, and how you put as much investigation into all of this, I don't know, because you have gone from just the Symbolism 1, where it was basically the symbolism in each movie to stretching it into, going into the history of the Gnosticism and the times, and you gave so much information. I would imagine you probably had to cut it down even at this length.
Yeah, the book did come in. I always like just writing large books. To me, it's just, I guess who I am. I just like to put as much information as I can in there. The book was shorter at one point in time, and what did kind of increase the length of it was this would have been about 2 years ago. In fact, it would have been around 2 years ago this exact time. This would have been January of 2020 or so. I saw at that point in time, I saw Joker and Midsommar. And I was so impressed with both those movies. I thought, well, there's just no way possible I can leave these out. I mean, there was just too much going on in those two films. So I kind of pumped the brakes on my end, and I decided to, add. I wanted to add Hereditary also, but I thought, no, that's too much. I thought I'll save that for part 4. So I did add Midsommar and Joker, and they are just so, in depth, both of those movies. I think Midsommar, I think the breakdown on that is the largest one in the book, so that definitely increased the length. And Joker, of course, also. They both movies have a lot happening inside them, so that definitely increased the length. But in the end of the day, I was happy with the way it came out. I didn't excise anything. It was just I added those two at the very end, which definitely probably tacked on an extra 100 pages easily. So that's how it got its length, and I was real happy with the way it came out, and I've already started outlining part 4. So,
oh my gosh.
we'll take it from there. I've already started doing that. So, yeah, it never ends.
No, I can see that, and it's a lot of some of the movies I have seen, some I have not. I did go and watch a couple of them, which extended the time that I spent, prepping for the show because I wanted to get some of them under my belt. But, I think what impressed me so much from the first book to this book, I mean, you give an outline of the movie in case people have not seen it, which I think really benefits the reader so that they can understand it. And you go into such depth as to the esoteric meaning behind so much of the show, so that you're kind of getting an idea as to what they were trying to depict and actually present to the reader or the watcher of the movie.
Sure.
Your books have totally, constantly changed the way that I look not only at movies, but at advertising, at television. I mean, it's amazing how it can, if you let it, expand your sensitivity to other things that are going on, not only in the television show, but in movies as well. And it gives you a greater depth of understanding of the message that they're trying to portray.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I've always put the plot of the movie in, and I do that for two reasons. One is I've been criticized for that, but I always do it for two reasons. One is I always find that, sometimes the person hasn't seen the movie and it might pique their interest in the movie, but a lot of times the plot in of itself, it has importance. I mean, and this is especially true when you're dealing with things like the monomyth with Campbell. I mean, the plot in of itself is the symbolism. The solar journey, the hero's journey, what have you. So I've always done that, and for me personally, I find that it helps me, write the analysis because, it's like, you're going through the movie and you got to say what's happening. You say, well, this is happening and here's what's going on in the background, or keep an eye out for this. I mean, I just find that I've tried writing it the other way, and I just find it comes out hodgepodge. If you just say, well, in Angel Heart, this happens, it's like, well, there's no context per se. You don't know what's going on, that this is this, 1950s noir satanic murder mystery involving these mysterious figures. So I've always found that kind of describing the atmosphere of the movie, the plot, introducing the characters, this for me at any rate, this just Rob Sullivan speaking. This, for me, just helps elucidate the hidden meaning of what's going on, sort of within the celluloid. That's for me anyway. So yeah, I always give a description of the movie. Not sometimes in the introduction I don't. I say, just keep an eye out for this or whatever. But that's of course, or I say, hey, I analyzed this movie in part 2, but take a look at this. Sometimes I do that. I'm constantly finding that I analyze a movie, and then there's always one or two little details that occur to me, a year or two later after watching it again for like the 10th time or something. So it's always a good way to put that stuff in the introduction. And like I said, I've already started outlining part 4. So no, I was real happy with the way part 3 came out, and I'm glad you liked it. And yeah, I mean, I was very, very pleased with it.
Well, I think this time you have included so much more of the history of the time and things like that. I mean, you go way back to the 1st century BC. After BC. You go way back to the beginning of history and stuff like that to give a better understanding of the spiritual aspect that is going on as well. So you're covering a lot more bases in this book than you have in other books. You're bringing in the tarot. You're bringing in astrology. You're bringing in all sorts of other aspects of analyzing these movies to the point that you've taken them apart into. There's so many pieces to the jigsaw. I found for me it was remembering that there is a whole picture I'm looking at, not just the jigsaw pieces that he's giving me that are fabulous support to the premise of what's going on. But it was amazing. I was blown away with that approach to what you were writing.
Yeah, I thought that was really sort of, for me, sort of one of the ways that works effective for me. I remember when I was doing the chapter, I believe it's chapter 2 with called Gnostic Hollywood. I mean, I just made up my mind. I thought, in order for this chapter to really work, I thought, let me give you this little dictionary at the beginning of it, where I just go through all the main tenets of Gnosticism. And I thought the best way for me to do this is, I thought it's twofold. I thought I could do that. I said, I could tell you what define Gnosticism and get into the tenets of it and things like that. I thought, but then I can apply it to films that I've already analyzed, like The Truman Show and The Matrix and Fight Club and things like that. So so you have really a broad spectrum of looking at it. You'll have an understanding of what the philosophy or the ideology is, and then I'm going to apply it to a movie that you're probably going to recognize. And then when it comes up again in a new movie that I'm analyzing, like Dark City or Metropolis or what have you, it'll be much more understandable. So I thought it worked well. And the one thing for me that always kind of is surprising to me is I always try to it's for whatever reason, I don't know why this is, the introductions seem to go on and on. I mean, they just seem, I've had a couple of people tell me you could get a book out of the introductions alone. I've always found that it's just it just, for me, it's just kind of like, I feel like this, you're dealing with a lot of very deep, arcane doctrines that I think, a lot of people aren't familiar with, and alchemy and spiritual alchemy and psychological alchemy and how they overlap and interrelate. And, how, it's this and that, but when you look at it like this, it could mean this. This to me is something that, I find that it has to be explained to be really understood and to explain it very in depth. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I definitely went all in on it. And in the end of the day, I was, like I said, I thought it came out really well. And I was happy with it. And I'm certainly, the one thing I can tell you right now with Cinema Symbolism 4 is I've started doing that again. I find that one of the things that I talk about on shows such as this is how this modality or this discipline predates Hollywood, how you'll find it in other, how you'll find it in the 19th century American authors or Shakespeare or Wagner or whatever. So I thought, well, let me put my money where my mouth is. So when you read Cinema Symbolism 4, I'm going to go back in time and show you how stuff turns up in Christopher Marlowe and Shakespeare and some of these earlier works, because I'm constantly telling, when I do shows that, this is all predates Hollywood. Hollywood is just the latest iteration of this. So I thought, let me go back in time and give some really good examples. I've done it in other books. I've alluded to things in Shakespeare and other books and things like that, but I thought, let me go back in time and really give you some hardcore examples of, in Shakespeare and Marlowe and people like that, of, how they're using this in their plays and in their dramas to convey different things.
Now, you go into great depth in a lot of the movies, and I'm wondering, was it the intention of those producers and writers and whatever, cinematographers, was it their intention to portray the things you're seeing? Or, I mean, in some cases it was, but do you think that some of what you've picked up has almost been an intuitive thing that was put into something without them thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question, and I think that, again, you have to go case by case with this. It's not a universal answer. You just have to look at a movie, on its individual basis. Yeah, I mean, some of it is without question intentionally placed in the film. There's no doubt about that. I think in some aspects of it, and again, especially when you're getting into the areas of, where the film becomes like prophetic. I think in some cases like that, this seems to be more of a supernatural effect going on within the celluloid that's kind of very difficult to explain. And I get into with the works of like Carl Jung and people like that, and even going back in time to people like Emanuel Swedenborg and Plato and people like that. The whole idea of creation being the sort of divine expression, and I guess sometimes certain things may creep into the movie that's unintentional, that's even unaware, that the filmmakers are even unaware of it, perhaps, on some sort of mystical subconscious level. So again, that's very possible. Again, though, you just have to take it case by case, because a lot of it, again, maybe not all of it, is intentionally placed. I mean, I was just watching the one movie I just got on Blu-ray last week that has a lot going on in it, but I don't think it's anything really sinister. It's a lot of homages to earlier works, as the latest Halloween movie, Halloween Kills. I thought that was very well done. But there's some things going on in it that, I mean, I know that are intentional. I just know that they are. But it was a great movie, and so I mean, a lot of it I do. Again, it's just a case-by-case analysis. You just have to look at the movie on its individual, on an individual basis, and take it from there. At least that's what I do.
I'm gonna throw my suggestion again in to take a look at Avatar, because I could. I mean, even I could see some of the symbolism in that, and that's without even looking. So, I keep throwing it at you. Sooner or later, you'll see the movie.
Yeah, I'll get around to watching it.
One of the things that hit me as we were going, as I was looking at all the movies that you have analyzed. How about cartoons? And not Mickey Mouse and Daffy Duck, but some of the animated shorts that are out there that are profound. Can you get into the same way of analyzing them, or is that just way too contrived?
No, I don't think it's contrived at all. Especially, it's funny you mention that, because one of the it's funny. It's actually funny that you actually mentioned that to me, because one of the things that I'm going to analyze in part 4 that I kind of it's one of those things where I kind of like, how did this kind of like get through the cracks, was the old MTV Aeon Flux cartoon. Which was on, I think it was Liquid Television. There was a couple of them. There was the first series, and I think there was a second series. There was a movie in the mid-2000s, which I'm probably going to avoid because it wasn't very good. But the old animated, it was in the 1990s, I want to say. So it was I believe it was around like the mid-90s, like 92, 93, 94, somewhere in there. It was a very popular television show, and it incorporated. I mean, just her name, Aeon, alone, is a reference to, Gnostic theology. And when you look at it, I mean, there was the original series and there was a second series. I mean, the second series definitely got into a lot of Gnostic undertones. I mean, I believe there was an episode called The Demiurge. There was, the whole notion of a false reality, or multiple realities. The woman kept dying, yet kept being brought back to life. So that was something that, I was always a big fan of that show, and I always liked it. I was sitting there, I was like, oh, how did this get by me all these years with all these movie books I've done? I've never mentioned Aeon Flux one time, especially when I was analyzing Gnosticism. So I thought that I would take that on in part 4. So no, I mean, that was a cartoon. Granted, it was an adult cartoon, but I always thought there was a lot going on in that show, and it had a very dystopian feel to it. I remember the very first episode had to do with a virus, reflecting the times we're living in, and an antidote. And the guy wanted to keep the antidote to himself, but eventually released it to the public. I believe that was the pilot episode of that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I thought, no, I'll take on Aeon Flux in part 4. And I've done some of the Walt Disney stuff in other books as well. I guess that's more though a movie that's a full-length feature, just an animated full-length feature. So, no, I mean, you can definitely get into sophisticated cartoons with esoteric symbolism, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think they're out there. I think more so than ever before, to be honest with you. I mean, when I think of even Tolkien with his Lord of the Rings, I mean, that has so much symbolism in it. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, that was... I took on the Lord of the Rings. I believe it was the first movie book I did. Was I took that on? I analyzed the movies, the Peter Jackson films. I didn't get into the Ralph Bakshi animated ones from the late 70s, early 80s. The problem with those is I like them. I kind of grew up on those, but they definitely take a lot of liberty with the material. They cut stuff out. They interweave it together, and I like them. I like the Ralph Bakshi, the Tolkien and the Hobbit. Probably the Hobbit is probably better than the Lord of the Rings material. The Hobbit's probably more faithful to the source material than the Lord of the Rings was. But no, that was animated, and that was good stuff. But no, the Lord of the Rings, oh my God, yeah, that's one. I mean, that's a great example of the monomyth, being present, with that. I mean, that's like a Star Wars type movie almost. And I did the 3 Peter Jackson films, in I think it was Cinema Symbolism Part 1, and then I thought, well, if I'm going to do those, then I got to take on The Hobbit, which of course then he did The Hobbit again. That was and he did those in 3 movies also, which I very much enjoyed. I thought they were great, and that's I think the final chapter of CS3. I want to say off the top of my head. So no, I love the Tolkien material.
Well, I think one of the other things that I was finding that while analyzing movies is certainly where I picked up on being more aware of symbolic things going on and symbolism as a whole in the movies, but I have found that I can find it in magazines. I can find it in all sorts of other places where you begin to realize that there is a subtle other message that is being sent to you if you're aware of it. And I mean, your books have taught me a lot, for sure. And I think one of the other things that I found fascinating, had somebody on a while ago that was into the archetypes in fairy tales, and how the fairy tales were really messages, especially the Grimm brothers, who were grim for sure, but
yeah.
their symbolism in their stories was telling a story, and telling it in story fashion so that the message got across and was implanted in people's consciousnesses. And so, there are definitely the symbolism goes into the fairy tales that we are so familiar with, Rapunzel and Hansel and Gretel, and all of them, where they were grim. They were teaching us something, and the symbolism is there if you look for it.
Oh yeah, fairy tales definitely. I mean, you got the rule of three going on in fairy tales. A lot of the fairy tales are, again, this is the solar imagery, just retold over and over again. I mean, this is the case with Little Red Riding Hood. The whole notion of the maiden falling into the wintry sleep to be awakened at the vernal equinox by the sun, the young, handsome prince, blue-eyed, blonde hair, the solar figure. So yeah, I mean, again, it's a lot of, if you read the guys, if you read the stuff about the archetypes, I mean, the one thing that, that they kind of all conclude is the archetypes all come from heaven. The archetypal imagery all is the planets, the moon, the sun, the stars, the constellations, and their interactions with each other. I mean, that's what the Book of Revelation is in the Bible. There's a book that I have. I can't remember the guy. It's on the shelf behind me, where he gets into the Book of Revelation. I mean, from start to finish, he goes through literally the entire Book of Revelation from literally the start to the end, and said, in this paragraph it says this is the the Antichrist Draco is now ascending on the eastern horizon, and gets into when the Book of Revelation was written, and everything that is occurring in the sky is what these guys are writing down in the book. The Antichrist, there's Draco, the great dragon on the ascent, and it's all just happening in the sky. Not here on Earth, but it's happening in the heavens above us. And again, it's the same thing with all these stories. You have the the solar hero, Perseus, Hercules with the 12 trowels, the 12 houses of the zodiac, Perseus, with the dragon, or St. George slaying the dragon, Draco. The constellation, what happens when the sun rises, the stars disappear, they flee, they're deceased, they're vanquished. So this is where you get the legend of St. George slaying the dragon coming from. So yeah, I mean, this is all, all these archetypes, the sun, the moon, the heavens, the constellations, the deacons associated with the different signs of the zodiac. This is what is all being drawn upon and being brought down here to Earth, as above, so below, I guess, the Hermetic maxim, as it were, and is being incorporated into these stories, whether they be fairy tales, whether they be Star Wars, whether they be the characters in a lot of the mainstream religions. It's when you become in tune with that, it's easier to decode and decipher, and it kind of, I don't want to use the word it falls apart, but it just makes it much more easier to see. At least that's what my research has brought to me at any rate.
Well, in this latest book, I found that I was more aware of your use of astrology and tarot and the Gnosticism stuff, along with the archetypes. The archetypes I recognize, but
yeah, sure.
I was more aware of the astrological, the tarot, and the Gnosticism. That felt new to me, and it probably was in the other books, and I just didn't recognize it in the other books.
Yeah, no, I definitely think I touched upon it a little bit. I probably went more all in with that because, again, when you're dealing with astrology and the tarot, you are inherently dealing with the archetypes. So, that was something that I kind of wanted to draw into this. Maybe I did it more in this book than I did the others, but I mean, no, that's, it's wonderful that you got that out of it. And, that I was able to present it in a way you were able to understand it. So, no, it's, you weren't missing, I know it was definitely in there. And, I think it works because, again, you're just dealing with this imagery that's, subconscious, yet is part of all of us. So, it's easy to see, at least in my opinion, to see where, a lot of these filmmakers are drawing this source material from. And it's funny, too, because, a lot of the books that I rely on, in my bibliography. I'll just tell a quick story on this. I know Hollywood uses this as well, uses some of these source materials. There's a book that I'm a fan of. He's an esoteric author. I'm a fan of him. His name's Richard Cavendish. He's got a couple books out. One's called The Black Arts, although some of the things he describes in the movie are not the black arts. He just throws everything in that's mystical into this into this book. But it's a good book nevertheless, and he has a book on tarot also, which I'm a fan of. And I was watching a made-for-movie television show that came out in the early 1970s. It was a movie called it's a show that I was a fan of. It's called Kolchak the Night Stalker. With Darren McGavin. It's the forerunner to the X-Files. The reason I'm telling this story is they made a sequel to it it came out like in 1973 called The Night Strangler. And this story, he was like this investigative journalist who was always pursuing these sort of occult stories, people, who are vampires or witches and things like that. And he in the second made-for-TV movie called The Night Strangler, he was investigating this guy who was living forever, and he was using alchemy to create this elixir of life to create it. And there's a scene in it where he goes to a college professor. This is Darren McGavin, and the college professor is none other than Margaret Hamilton, of all people, the Wicked Witch herself. And she starts describing. He starts asking her about. Immortality and the elixir of life and alchemy and things like that. And she starts describing it. And I'm not kidding you, Barbara. I could literally I took my copy of The Dark Arts by Richard Cavendish off the shelf, and you could read it. The people who had written the script had literally taken 4, 5, 6 sentences out of this book verbatim, literally, and just had her and just stuck them into the script. She starts getting into the elixir of life and alchemy and some of the alchemists, Paracelsus and people like that. And you can literally sit there with the book and read along with her, with Margaret Hamilton, reading this into the script that these filmmakers created. So, if that doesn't tell you right then and there, that there's a very deep familiarity with this material in Hollywood, you're fooling yourself.
Well, I think, in my opinion, that any of the writers who write material for movies or television or commercials have a certain amount of creative energy that they are accessing, and when they access it, when they channel it, when they bring it through themselves, it definitely has that spiritual Gnostic flavor to it. And I think you can almost tell where the writers are coming from as to how they are plotting a story. It's been, I'm fascinated with it. With even some book authors, you can tell when the author is connected to something, someone, somehow. They're connected to another energy, and a story flows. And in the next book they're writing, it's cold. It's obviously researched and well put together, but there isn't that flavor of a flow to it. And when they hit the flow, then magic happens in a book, on the screen, on television. And Kolchak was one of my favorites of all time. So I think what I'm feeling here as I look at stuff now, when I read a book or see something, I'm always looking for, was there a flow here? Is there something that comes from beyond just the thinking mind, from the creative mind? And you can tell there is a special magic that comes through, whether it's dialogue, whether it's scenery, whether it's whatever, that someone there was connected to another level of creativity that was beyond what they actually had. So it's exciting to watch. That's why I keep asking you to watch Avatar. But there is that magic there, and it's sort of, you can tell a lot of the movies that become well followed and well, that they become popular and they make a lot of money. Those are the ones that, in my opinion, that have that kind of a flow to them, where you can see that there is something else flowing into the consciousness of the writer to portray on paper or on film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think, and again, I think a lot of the, more uncanny symbolism, does have that supernatural flair to it. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I picked up on. I mean, I remember when I was watching, the two movies that I talk about, because they're kind of related. I mean, they're not related, but they're made by the same filmmaker, which was Hereditary and Midsommar. It was, I felt like, I know he was using the number 9 a lot in Midsommar, but it has to do with Norse mythology. But then I was also wondering, did this have a reference to this other demon that he was, talking about in Hereditary, Payman, which is the 9th demon in the Lesser Key. And I just couldn't, because Midsommar was just so bleak and so dark. I just couldn't help but think somehow or another that, that dark force just filtered into that movie somehow on like a supernatural level. I don't even know if the filmmaker was aware of it, but and Ari Aster's great. I mean, I just love his work, but it's very bleak and very dark. But I really liked it. So no, I mean, you definitely, at least for me, there is sometimes when I watch these, you just feel like there is this sort of supernatural vibe that you pick up to them. I guess The Exorcist is another one, because it's just so dark.
Oh, yeah.
And so bleak. But and even like the other one that I always wind up talking about is it's kind of, they always throw into there because it's just such a dark film, was The Black Cat with Karloff and Lugosi. I mean, for whenever that came out, I think 1933, 1934. I mean, that just deals with, so many dark themes, and especially in that time frame. It's just a very grim film, but I do like it. Karloff in that one is the Crowley analog. That definitely is based on the is based on the great beast himself. So, very dark film, but I loved it anyway. So no, yeah, I mean, I just love watching the films and seeing what's in there and seeing what these filmmakers can put in next. And I know there's some films coming out or that came out that I'm really very much looking forward to seeing. I haven't seen them yet. I mean, I know there's the new Matrix movie. I haven't seen it, but I can't, if it's anything like the other ones, there should be, one would think there'd be something going on in it.
Oh, yeah.
I took on Dune, the David Lynch Dune, but I know there was a new one, and that's out. I want to check that out. And I know that there's one that comes out tomorrow called Last Night in Soho, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. So I can't wait to see that. And again, I haven't seen them yet, but definitely ones that I'm looking forward to. And there was another one also, it's escaping me, but there's a couple out right now that I want to see, but at any rate.
Do you ever go to the movies to just be entertained?
I haven't. I do watch. I do watch the movie for an entertainment purpose, where I can kind of take off my analytical hat and watch the film. I did this when I was watching Halloween Kills. When I first watched it, I kind of just watched it. I loved the last one. I loved the last Halloween movie, and this is the direct sequel to it. So when I got that, I was just watching that for fun, and I very much liked the movie. I thought it was terrific. I very much am more into, I don't really go to the movie theater that much anymore, and it's not COVID related or anything. For me personally, I just love watching it on, just having the home experience with it, where I can pause it, stop it, get up and do something, come back to it. Or if I see something like that startles me, I can pause it or go back and rewatch it. So for me, I just usually wait for the Blu-ray to come out, and I just get the Blu-ray and then take it from there. I very seldom go to the movies to watch a movie anymore. Like I said, that predates COVID, though. And one of the reasons for that is it's because the movie becomes readily available. In the 1980s and 1990s, and I guess this is because of the age of video that we were in, this is all pre-internet. When a movie came out in the theater, there was a lag. If you're my age, you'll certainly remember this. There was a lag between when it was hit the theater. Yeah, there was a lag between when it hit the theater and when you got it on VHS tape. It was usually around 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
I remember, if a movie came out in the theater, like in the winter time, let's say December of like 1994, let's just say. That movie you would not have access to, whether on cable television or VHS tape, probably till August or September of the next year. It was usually 9 months. Well, nowadays, because of Netflix and the internet and everything like that, if a movie's released in October, I mean, it's available 3 months later. Halloween Kills came out in October of 2021, and it was released last week. So you only have to wait like 2.5, 3 months to see it. So that's what I do now. I just wait for it to be released on Blu-ray, and I just get the Blu-ray and take it from there. But no, I do watch movies just to be entertained. But there's always, for me, and especially if it's a movie that I'm anticipating something like, the Halloween 18 had loads going on in it, and immediately when you throw in Halloween Kills, it kind of picks up where the other one left off. So it's like, oh, wait a minute. Here we go again with the role reversal, when I was watching it. So I can watch them for entertainment purposes, but, my mind's kind of pretty much always turning. But no, I can watch movies for just solely to be entertained by.
Yeah, I know. As far as turning it off and walking away for a while, that's how I was with Silence of the Lambs. I couldn't sit and watch that whole movie straight through. I just, I had to take a break in there, and I couldn't watch it at night. I had to watch it during the day. So sometimes,
it's a creepy film. Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes films trigger stuff inside of us that we aren't even aware is there until it happens, and then it could be past life, or it could be something this life, a trauma of some sort. But sometimes they just trigger an aspect inside of you that you can't deal with yet. So you have to either stop and come back later, or just not continue watching. And I think that's what, I don't know what it was in Silence of the Lambs that hit me, but something did, and it terrified me. And even when I knew what was coming, it still terrified me. So it was either it's something inside of me, or the movie maker was that great that he was able to get that reaction from me. I'm not sure which it was.
Yeah, there's.
But
No, there's truth to what you're saying to that. It wasn't necessarily with Silence of the Lambs. For me, the one thing that I always kind of, that it doesn't worry me, and I'm not scared, is I always find that when I'm watching these movies that are highly symbolic, like The Shining or Midsommar, and a movie that I've analyzed, I always find that I kind of put them away for a little while, because I know if I go in and watch it again, like 6, 7, 8 months later, I know inevitably I'm going to see something that I missed the first, 8 or 9 times. And that always kind of is like, oh, I missed that. I guess I'll have to make a note of it in Cinema Symbolism 4 or something like that. But when you're talking about, like, with stuff like that, no, that is definitely a documented phenomenon that, and it's not, it movies, it can certainly do it, but it can also go beyond cinema, where if you have anxiety or depression or something like that, and you get over it, it's 5 or 6 years later, it has been well documented that something, people who have a relapse into it, or, get depressed or anxiety, have a bout with a slight anxiety attack or something, a lot of times it's subconscious, and it goes back to the original, and it can be the slightest thing. It can be a color combination matched with a smell, or something you're not even aware of, or a sound combined with a color and a smell, or something you caught out of the corner of your eye, where it's like, whoa, wait a minute, and you don't even know what it is. No, that's definitely a documented phenomenon that psychiatrists and psychologists, have talked about, where, if you've had a bout with depression 10 years ago, and even if you know what caused it, you went through, you had treatment or whatever, that you can, even now, 10 years later, you can, hear a noise or a sound or a color or maybe something like you said in a movie or a television show that can just drag you back into that, and you don't even know what it is. So yeah, that's definitely a documented, phenomenon that has happened, that can happen to a person.
Well, you've while your book is about movies, there was actually, something that you wrote that talks about Gnosticism being portrayed by by Melville and let's see, and Poe and who else? Thomas Aquinas and Albertus Magnus. That the symbolism that we see in movies is smack in your face, but it's also been in too that the symbology is still there in reading a book and how the author describes situations or surroundings, or depending on the writing. Because when I read a book, I see pictures in my head. So
Right.
So that this kind of symbolism is in books too that go back hundreds of years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is something that I'm going to flesh out more in Cinema Symbolism 4. But no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, Herman Melville with Moby Dick. You certainly have Ahab as the demiurgic figure. And I mean, there are definitely Gnostic references to the demiurge, to Sophia. I believe there's a portion in there where Ahab compares the demiurge. There's a lot of it with fire. With the demiurge forming a nexus to fire, and then Ahab is also there's a lot of fire imagery around him, and of course he treats the crew of the ship sort of as this malignant demiurge, this oppressive godlike figure. I mean, Nathaniel Hawthorne is another one. Edgar Allan Poe. The cast of Amontillado is the anti-Masonic affair, right? Where Fortunato gets bricked up in the wall with the Mason's trowel and disappears forever, by the main character in that thing. So that's a whole allegory of the William Morgan anti-Masonic affair that Poe lived through. Nathaniel Hawthorne. The Scarlet Letter is an alchemist lab where Hester associates with the colors red and yellow. This is of course the rubedo and the citrinatus, and then of course Chillingworth associates with black, the negredo, and Dimsdale associates with white, the albedo. And of course you have the alchemical wedding in that, where Pearl, the perfected child, is created at the end. So, the Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne is nothing more than an alchemical lab. So no, and you get into Shakespeare and Marlowe also with this stuff. So no, it definitely, you're 100% correct. This predates Hollywood. And yeah, you can find it, you can definitely find these esoteric themes, this, sub-layer of esoteric imagery, whether it be Gnosticism or alchemy, going on in Poe and Melville and a lot of other these characters. That is irrefutable, no doubt about it.
Well, I think it's something that everybody should understand, that you haven't created something, you have brought something to the fore that has always been there, and that it has been at work within our subconsciousnesses and our consciousnesses. It's a way of awakening aspects within us, and us recognizing them that is profound. And I've often wondered, I'm sure it's not as evident in all movies, but I would think that it's in every movie to one degree or another, like the Truman Show. That was basically in many ways kind of a comedic thing, and yet there's a huge message there.
Oh yeah, well the Truman Show is definitely one of those Valentinian Gnostic fables, right up there with the Matrix, where you have the guy living in the false reality and is questing for his true self. I mean, that's his name, Truman, the true man. So yeah, I mean that's no doubt about it. The one thing that I liked in the book, that I was just on another show, I was mentioning this, and I'll just get into it briefly here, was, and again, how, like you said, how this stuff is so kind of like transcended. I mean, especially with like the monomyth, which is itself archetypal. One of the things I did, and, if you read the book, if you read CS3, was, I said, you can find elements of this thing just about in anything. And one of the movies that I took was this movie that came out at the same time as Star Wars. I tried to find the antithesis of Star Wars from the late 1970s, and I thought, well, let me see if I can't do this. Let me find the movie that is like, the antithesis of Star Wars from 1977, 78, and see if the monomyth is present in this thing. And of course, the movie that I came up with was Smokey and the Bandit with Burt Reynolds and Jackie Gleason. And sure enough, I mean, you will definitely find, you could, as I break down in the book, Big Enos and Little Enos Burdett are your threshold guardians. You have your road of trials with the bandit going across, crossing state lines, going on this, cross-country adventure to get the bootleg the beer. The Jackie Gleason character is clearly, the ogre father figure. You have the meeting of the goddess with the Sally Field character. So, you can find, the elements of the monomyth, just about turn up in everything in some form or fashion, maybe not like they do in Star Wars or The Matrix or, Harry Potter, but they're there. They're present. And, again, with archetypes, and the Truman Show, for instance, like you brought up, it's a comedy with Jim Carrey, but it's it has, your demiurgic creator, Christoph, the creator of the false reality. You have Truman at the end, sort of the Valentinian Christ, ascending up into the heavens at the end, standing there cruciform, sort of the liberator, the liberator of the, trying to, liberate himself, but the viewer from the false reality that is Sea Haven. So no, it's a very religious movie. It's very profound. It's very Gnostic. If you wanted to list, if you wanted to list like the top 5 or 6 or 7 Gnostic movies that Hollywood has ever produced, or made, and you wanted to throw the Truman Show up there in the top 5 or so, I wouldn't argue with you. I wouldn't have a problem doing that. It's one of those. It's one of those movies, and I mentioned this in the book, and I guess it's psychological. I guess it had to be. I don't see a bunch of filmmakers sitting around planning this out, but you did have. It is documentable. I talk about it in the book that this slate of Gnostic films that we always wind up talking about, whether it be The Matrix or The Truman Show or Dark City or Fight Club or Donnie Darko, they all came out in this 5-year window. From about 1997 to about 2002, where you had the turnover of the millennium. Whether this has something to do with the change of age from Pisces to Aquarius or the millennium, these Gnostic films, they all have to do with this idea of awakening to self-consciousness, of coming to know thyself, of having this conscious awakening. And it's all these same movies, and they all came out in this 5-year time frame from about 97 to about 02, coinciding with the turnover of the millennium. And I guess that was psychological. That's what I chalk it up to. But no matter what, it's there, and I don't think it's a coincidence. Again, I think it's more psychological, perhaps a dash of supernatural as well. But, it definitely happened, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it just seems to me that television and movies, they are being used in a new form, in that there is always a subliminal message there. And it seems that we don't always grasp it, but even though we don't grasp consciously the message that is being sent, it definitely is implanting material into our consciousness. And I look at the Star Trek stuff. When Star Trek came out, they had the doors that open and shut. They had the tricorders. They had the scanners. They had all sorts of stuff. And here we are 10, 20 years later, and all of us are walking through doors at shopping malls and not thinking a thing about the fact that the door opened for us and shut, or flip phones, or computers, right. Or, it's almost like on some level they are, first of all, giving us a hint at what's coming in the future, and second of all, giving us greater depth of perception as to what has gone before and how we can use that material. and in changing our lives and changing the way we deal with the people that we come in contact with, so that you can recognize some of the archetypes in people, and then you can get kind of an understanding as to how best to deal with them, so that it is teaching us on a subliminal level. And in many ways, we're in the matrix. The TV and the computers are all programmed to help us understand, or to give us information, or to steer us in a certain direction.
Yeah, I don't disagree with. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Again, the movies can be prophetic. It's just, just like you said, just become aware of it. Just become aware of what it is, you're watching, and pay attention to it. I guess this is one of the motivations why I wrote the books and continue to write the books, is because it's just such a fascinating study. The lengths that these filmmakers will go into include these deeper hidden layers of esoterica in their films, and they really do. It's arguably the most potent and powerful form of media that's ever created, whether it be television or cinema, and they just go through. They just use layer upon layer of these ancient doctrines, whether it be Hermeticism or alchemy, the archetypes. The Renaissance guys talk about the archetypes. Giordano Bruno talked about them in his works. About they didn't use the word archetype. That wasn't available to them. But the word that you're constantly seeing surrounding these guys in the Renaissance is you'll see the word, or the phrase, shadows from the world's soul. That's what, that's the term they use. These are shadows from the world's soul. It's constantly the term that these guys are using. And what they're all saying is, it's when you become in tune with them. This is what guys like Bruno said. When you become in touch with them, you are becoming closer to the Godhead. And why is that? Because all the archetypes come from the heavens, and that's where God is. They all come from the planets and the stars and the interaction, and this is where God hangs out. So they are all divine, and when you become aware of them, you become aware of the divine in of yourself. And again, they didn't have the advent of modern psychology, but when you read these guys, that's the term that's constantly you'll see is shadows from the world's soul, to describe the archetypes and what have you. So no, it's definitely. Hollywood definitely uses it, and like I said, it's just such a fascinating study for me to do it. And I guess, and I've been on other shows, and I probably even have said it on this show before. One of the things that I really like about this examination is you can find it. You can see it. It's not. It's really. It's like with Bigfoot or UFOs. Is it really Bigfoot, or is it a guy in a gorilla suit? Is it really a UFO, or is it Venus or something else? I could, when you read the book or read my book and you watch the movie, you should be able to see this stuff with your own two eyes. Whether it be, a movie like The Shining with the repetition or, what have you. That's, to me, is one of the reasons, or, Midsommar with the number 9, or, take it, whatever way you want to take it. That's one of the reasons why I like this study so much, is you could see it with your own eyes.
Oh yeah, and totally relate to it. It's sort of like, wow, I didn't notice that at first, but look at that. And especially with when I don't know, when did Symbolism 1 come out? How long ago was that?
Yeah, that came out, let's see, it originally came out in 14, so we're talking like 8 years ago. Yeah, I find it hard to, it was funny too, because it'll be Royal Arch is coming up on 10 years old originally, and that's like, whoa, where did the time go?
Yeah. Well, when we first talked about, so it was, my God, it was over 10 years ago, just about. Well, up close to 10 years.
Yeah, probably close to 10 years, yeah.
That's when I first, started to look at the archetypes and see times in my life where I was reflecting one archetype, and then other times in my life when I was reflecting other archetypes. And I could, if I sat down and said to myself, okay, what's going on in life, and how am I reacting to it, and what archetype would that relate to? It did help me to understand life as a whole. And so in many ways, it was an instruction book for me to first recognize where I was and where did I want to go, and shift my life to change my life so that I was going in that direction. So that said, do you want to take a short break now? We're at a place where
absolutely.
I wanted to get in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Let's take a short break. We'll take a 5, 6, 7 minute break, and I'll be back. Let's see. I'll be back in like 5, 6, 7 minutes. Does that work?
Sure. I'll just sit here and ramble.
Okay. I'm going to mute my mic, and I'll be back in shortly.
Okay, great. So I think it's important that people understand that the material that he's presenting can be used in all sorts of places in your life, not just looking at books and movies and television shows and ads on television and stuff like that, but when you understand the different archetypes and you understand what makes them up, and the heroes and the saviors and all of that, you can see where you are in your life, and you certainly can. If it's a good place, then you can give yourself a pat on the back and continue on your way. Or if it's a place where you would like to change things, you at least know what it is that you are presenting to the public and what it is that you want to change that to, and beginning to work towards it. Because I've always said to people, if you don't like your life and what's going on in it, then you have the power to change it. And that's true. And understanding archetypes and understanding a lot of the other material that Robert does present in his books gives you the education and gives you the opportunity to be able to make those shifts and changes. And I think when first I read his first book a long time ago, it opened the door to my understanding movies and what they were saying and what kind of message were they presenting, and very much like when you look at the TV shows and when you look at the movies and you see the computers everybody's got, then they're Apple computers, and therefore it kind of plants a seed in you. If if I'm going to buy a computer, maybe I should buy an Apple. And so that subliminal message is being sent to us in movies and in television and all over the place. And when you become aware that there are these messages that are kind of being shoved at us and spoon-fed to us, actually, and understand that I think it's 45 seconds or 30 seconds, between 45 and 30 seconds of watching TV, it has put you into a state of alpha, which means that you are easily impressioned by whatever is coming your direction, so that you are getting a subliminal message of whatever is being presented on the television. And if it's more than just a verbal message, if there are visuals connected to it, those too are being implanted into your subconscious, so that we are being in some ways programmed and manipulated by the television and entertained, for sure, but do understand that if I see a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, I'm so hungry for them, it's awful, and happily there's not a Dunkin' Donuts real close, or I would be out the door getting some. So do understand that we are, when we're staring at the television for any length of time, we are open to suggestions that are being made on the screen. And if you find, especially your children, are watching only one kind of show, you might want to sort of shift and change their seeing habits as to what's going on, so that they aren't imprinted with messages that might not be as good for them as others might be. I know that I am more aware of what I watch, and if I had children, I would definitely be very aware, and I would definitely limit their television time. It's fascinating material, and he goes into the astrology, he goes into the tarot, he goes into astronomy, he goes into all sorts of other different modalities that can be used for analytical purposes in your own behavior and how you feel that you are dealing with other people and life in general. So that it is an amazing education of perception. And I think it's really important that the longer we're on this earth plane, the more aware we have to be as to what we are reacting to and what is being imprinted upon us. And not only that, but how we are impacting other people by how we are treating them and speaking to them and dealing with them. So his books can be an amazing education in an understanding as to what we subconsciously, how our subconsciousness is being used to program our everyday life. And it's phenomenal. This last book, the over 800-page book, is an amazing amount of information, and I would recommend people, if they're going to read it slowly, because there's so much information in each of the sections that you have to be able to absorb it, understand it, and it isn't just for analyzing movies. It's for educating you as to how things are perceived and how you can interpret things happening in your daily life to a better, wiser, more intensive, more insightful degree. And so it's a lot of pages, but there's a tremendous amount of information there into Gnosticism, into the Kabbalah, into Freemasonry even. And when he gets back, we're going to look into, hopefully...
into Elvis.
No, we're not looking into Elvis. although his comparison of Elvis is really fascinating. But I want to go into the Freemasonry and the National Treasure movies, because I thought that was really cool, and Harry Potter into just exactly how Dumbledore and Harry, and I mean he compared Dumbledore to Hermes Trismegistus. So his stuff is very impressive, and he goes into so many different directions. You know, it's a roller coaster ride of information, and that's why I said read it slowly, because it's not something that you can, you know, just casually go through. I don't think it's possible to see all the movies that he talks about. I know that I've seen a lot of them, but a lot of the titles I don't even recognize, and some of them, after his synopsis, I really, you know, probably not go into some of them. But Mark, how about you? Oh, okay.
Oh,
hi, Rob.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here.
I hardly endorse Rob's books. He just draws your attention to new perspectives and new possibilities of interpreting these works.
Absolutely. But I was telling everybody, you going to stay or you going to go?
I'm going to go back into my little cave here and
your
let
cave?
you finish the show.
Okay, don't go away. But I was telling them, Rob, that I thought your book was chock full of so much information that I highly recommended they not read it rapidly, but read sections of it and then go back and read them again, because there's so much information there that you don't want to miss any.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I always try to be thorough with the books. And always try to, give the best information. So, and again, it's important to me because, if a person's coming to this for the first time and doesn't necessarily have the background with it, I always try to provide, I always try to provide, information as to what, some of these Gnostic philosophers are saying, or alchemy and how it works and stuff like that. So, the book can be used. The books can be used as a resource also. I mean, if you don't know what alchemy is, or you don't understand, what spiritual alchemy is, or something like that, you'll get an understanding of it, and then you'll be able to, I give you examples of how it turns up in pop culture, I guess.
Yeah, it's more of a textbook, for sure, and it's something that has to be, you can read it fast, but you won't get what you need out of it. I guess you do, but I felt I felt that you almost had to absorb stuff before you went on to the next section in order to be able to understand and build upon what you got in the first section. So it's a fascinating book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did want to go into, though, the couple of things. You talked about Gnosticism and occultism in the Blade Runner and the Fight Club and the Truman Show. You want to expand upon that, especially with the Blade Runner, because that's the one I'm most familiar with.
Right. Well, the Nexus 6 is this, the idea of the artificial intelligence, this comes out of, Hermeticism and Kabbalah, whether it be the Hermetic statue or the Kabbalistic golem, the creation of the artificial life. And clearly, in Blade Runner, in the original one, the Rick Deckard character, his name is a play on René Descartes, who was into automatons and robots. He was a Renaissance philosopher. He was a mathematician, but he was into automatons and the emotion, robots and their relationship to emotions. So the whole name of Rick Deckard is a play on René Descartes. The whole the whole idea with the Gnostic theme in that one, in Blade Runner, is that it's kind of like the Dorothy Gale in in Wizard of Oz, is that Descartes has this great epiphany at the very end that the robots are the Nexus 6s, who are more philosophical than their human counterparts, if you watch Blade Runner, are deserving of life, are worthy of life and shouldn't be exterminated. And even the one, the baddie even quotes, or he misquotes William Blake at one point in the original in the original Blade Runner. Rutger Hauer, there's a quote where he gets "fallen angels fell." That's from William Blake. That's from America, the Prophecy. William Blake was a English mystic. He's probably Emanuel Swedenborg's greatest critic, and he created this Gnostic cosmology based on Kabbalah, where, if you read Blake, Adam Kadmon is Albion, and Urizen is the demiurge. Urizen is the guy, if you're familiar with Blake, he's the guy kneeling down with the Masonic square and compasses in front of the moon. That's the frontispiece from Europe, a prophecy. So you have this injection of William Blake into Blade Runner. And again, with Descartes, it's the same motifs you see again and again and again, where at the very end of it, you have, Descartes ascending the building, climbing the mountain, as it were, in the rain, the baptism to receive enlightenment, and then, I love the one scene where, it's you kind of have this, with Gnosticism, it flirts with alchemy. The Renaissance and medieval alchemists took their ideas from the Gnostics. And of course you have Roy Batty. Roy is, the Red King. Roy means king in French. And then you have Pris dressed up as the White Queen at one point in the wedding veil. It's the alchemical union of the male and female, the hermetic androgyny going on there. I thought that was always interesting symbolism, imagery going on in Blade Runner. But then, of course, then you have at the end where Batty becomes the, Valentinian Christ figure, the enlightener. Where he has the stigmata in his hand, the nail, the wound of Christ in his hand with the piercing of the hand, and then the whole thing with the dove at the end where it's released, and that comes straight out of the New Testament where it's Batty releasing his soul. That's they're trying to tell you that Batty does in fact have a human soul. That's what's going on in the first Blade Runner. And then you had Blade Runner 2049, where it kind of kicked this up a level, where it's, if they have souls, can they emote, and specifically can they love? Can the Nexus 6s love? That's the whole theme going on in Blade Runner 2049. So no, it's Blade Runner was a movie that I originally took on in the first cinema book, but I felt I expanded on it in Cinema Symbolism 3 because I took on the Blade Runner 2049 movie.
Ah, well, that's always been one of my favorite movies. It touched me. What can you say?
Yeah, Blade Runner's great. That's Philip K. Dick, and of course, a lot of his works, have been made into movies in Hollywood, and Philip K. Dick is one of those guys who is one of these modern Gnostic writers. You're dealing with things related to false realities and conspiracies and things like that. I mean, Blade Runner was based on one of his stories. It's called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" What Blade Runner was born out of. And then if you ever see Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's also based on a William K. or Philip K. Dick, novella. I forget the name of that one. So no, he's very popular in Hollywood. And again, the Adjustment Bureau is another one, Philip K. Dick. So Existenz is loosely based on him. So yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with Philip K. Dick, you're inevitably dealing with Gnostic and occult and conspiracy themes. Wow.
Well, how about National Treasure? Here's another one that you mentioned went into the Royal Ark of Enoch. I recognize in National Treasure a lot of the symbolism being Masonic, because they told you. But is there anything beyond what was obvious, with National Treasure? Because it was an amazing movie. It was enjoyable, and it really does again open you up to the symbolism. Is you said it echoed the ninth gate. Now, how does that echo the ninth gate?
Well, it runs parallel with the whole idea. The National Treasure Part 1 and Part 2 I originally took on in the Royal Arch of Enoch, and it's a Masonic ritual. It's the Royal Arch of Enoch. It's the 13th degree in the Scottish Rite. It's the 7th degree, in the York Rite, and it's the whole ritual involves the discovering of the Masonic Templar treasure in a subterranean vault in the beneath the holy ground in Jerusalem. That's the Masonic ritual, and of course, this is what's going on in the movie. It's the discovery of the Masonic Templar treasure beneath the holy ground. They said it in New York City, which is a reference to DeWitt Clinton, who is a very famous Royal Arch Freemason and former governor of New York, former mayor of New York City and governor of New York State. So when you watch National Treasure, you're watching a Masonic ritual. And of course, if you've ever seen the whole, if you're familiar with the ritual, the treasure is veiled under 9 archways. It's concealed under 9 arches, and this is a motif that comes out of Christianity. It's the celestial hierarchies. It's part of the occult Pauline tradition that to order to ascend to heaven, you have to pass through these 9 celestial hierarchies guarded by these archangels. In order to receive, to get to the Godhead. And of course, this is in the 9th gate. I mean, it's the same thing. It's coming from Dante Alighieri. This is why there's 9 levels in hell, 9 levels in heaven. And the same thing in the Royal Arch. There's these 9 archways denoting this, 9 levels of spiritual purification that you have to get to. And of course, in the Masonic ritual, when you go through the 9 archways, when you go beneath them, what's the treasure? What's the name of God? It's divinity. And again, it comes out of the Pauline tradition, the celestial hierarchies, and there's 9 of them. And again, and this is where the whole idea of the 9 gates come from, that you have to pass through these 9 gates to receive Lucifer, the light, as it were. They put the filmmakers and the author of the 9 gates put more of a darker spin on it. But if you're familiar with the novel of the 9 gates, it's more Kabbalistic. It runs parallel. They all run parallel. It's the 9 gates. It's the 9 celestial hierarchies. This is the Sephirah in Kabbalah. This is what are known as the 7 governors in the Hermetica. It's these levels of spiritual, levels of spiritual purification the soul has to transgress through in order to receive, the Godhead, as it were. So that's the symbolism that this stuff is all drawing upon. And you can see the parallels, like I said, in the Masonic ritual, which is what the National Treasure movie is based upon. It's 9 arches, and in the 9 Gates movie, it's 9 gates. But they're running parallel. It's reflecting Hebrew Kabbalah, Christian Kabbalah, which is again coming out of the works of Pseudo Dionysius, and of course the Hermetica with the Divine Pymander, the 7 governors in that. So that's where this is all coming out of.
I noticed with a lot of the symbolism with the different numbers, whether it's, I was just going to say it's usually single digit, but there are 12 astrological houses, and there are 12, the number 12 comes out a lot too. There's a lot with repeating numbers, and certain numbers seem to have greater impact than other numbers. Certainly the 9 and the 12 and 3, the Trinity. There seems to be a mystical connection to a lot of numbers that people don't actually realize. I know that when I was actually looking for a new home, I was looking for I was looking at addresses because I wanted to make sure that the address to me had a symbolic meaning that was appropriate. And my address is 19, and that goes down to a 1, which is a new beginning. So and I was avoiding other numbers because they felt heavier to me, which right. Sounds ridiculous now that I'm saying it, but and the house that I had in Connecticut was 1, which I thought was fabulous, and then I had another house in Connecticut that was 33. So I was looking right. at numerology because it felt like it was important that the address be the appropriate number that I was comfortable with. And I've been very fortunate in all of my selections because that's exactly what's happened. So,
yeah, I'm not going to give away my street address, but I guess it's synchronicity because my number is 32. I guess there's something to that. But no, absolutely. The number 12, again, this, again, is a number that you're absolutely correct, deals with the 12 houses of the zodiac, that the sun gets, is assisted on its annual journey. This is why there are 12 apostles. Each one of the apostles corresponds to a zodiac. This is why there are 12 tribes of Israel. Same reason. It corresponds to the 12 houses of the zodiac. In Royal Arch of Enoch, with the 12 apostles, I do the whole breakdown of each one. Where I don't have them off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at my book, but they all correspond. And of course, Jesus is the solar avatar, the solar stand-in. Moses is the solar stand-in. So it's only appropriate to associate the number 12 with those guys. So no, numbers are a great way in film to give you a tip off. At least for me, when I'm analyzing a film, if I see a number, I'm not always is the case, but if I see a number, something like that, and I can forge a nexus to it, that's a great tip off right there. That okay, well now I know something's going on here because here it is. One of the great ones, and again, it's one of the most overloaded movies with esoteric symbolisms, out there, and it's a movie that I've dissected ad nauseum, is Black Swan. And a great, that has one of the greatest numerical references of all of them in it, where Natalie Portman is going into this is near the beginning of it, is going into the ballet studio or the rehearsal, and there's a giant poster of Winona Ryder hanging on the side of the wall, and the date on it is February 12th. And of course, that is no accident. That is the birth date of Anna Pavlova, who was a famous Russian ballerina who created a ballet called The Dying Swan off of Swan Lake, which is of course what the whole movie is based upon. And when you watch, and of course, when Winona Ryder's picture is on the poster, it's her face, her countenance. And of course, the Winona Ryder character is the dying swan. She's the one who is trying to kill herself. She's the one, exiting. She's forced into retirement. She tries to kill herself. And when you watch the end credits of Black Swan, Winona Ryder is actually billed as Beth McIntyre, the dying swan. So I mean, right then and there, I mean, okay, when you see that and you could form that nexus, okay, now I know that I have a director here who is in tune with this stuff, who is messing with me, who is using this, esoteric symbolism and things like that. And then that's when I know, okay, this movie's going to have a lot going on in it. And sure enough, Black Swan, is one of those movies that is just overloaded with stuff. And that's always a great start for me when I can see stuff like that. I was just watching the one. I'm not going to belabor it because I doubt you've seen it. I don't know if it's probably not a movie that you'd probably be into. It's the latest Halloween Kills movie, and I guess I don't want to spoil it if people are listening and haven't seen it. But the end scene there, where the one character bites the dust, is a complete reshot of the Psycho shower scene. Where Norman Bates kills Marion Crane. I mean, it's completely paying homage to that without question. And then if you really have the eye for it, when Michael Myers is standing in the window looking out of it, and he's seeing, and you can see the mask, you can catch that subliminal, very faint of the human skull on the mask. And again, this is a throwback to Psycho, where at the very end of the movie, where Norman Bates is looking up after he says, "I wouldn't even harm a fly," the skeleton of the mother is superimposed over his face, or fades in and out real fast as the subliminal. So that was something very neat going on, or very interesting going on in Halloween Kills. And again, that's a movie that has a lot going on in it. But when you see that, that's like the stuff going on in Black Swan. That's when, for me at any rate, that I know. Okay, I'm dealing with a film here that has a lot going on in it, so that, makes me sit up in my chair more.
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact that you bring a lot of the Masonic stuff in, because that's always been an area for me of fascination, and I know when you go into the Harry Potter films, especially the Sorcerer's Stone, you're talking about Dumbledore being kind of reflective of Hermes Trismegistus, and that how does the Sorcerer's Stone reflect stuff in Freemason, the high degree of Masonry?
Right. Well, that's a really great example of this, and I guess this is an example of synchronicity, because I don't know if Rowling was aware of this or not, but no, Dumbledore is one of those guys like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Gandalf. It's the Hermes Trismegistus wizard archetype. The godfather of magic, for lack of a better word. I mean, and they all look alike. I mean, it's the old graybeard figure. And if you're familiar with Masonic lore, and the old charges and all that good stuff. Hermes Trismegistus is the godfather of Freemasonry. When the Vault of Enoch is breached, the 7 liberal arts and sciences pillar is restored to humankind by Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus pronounces the Tetragrammaton correctly and restores the wisdom encoded on the Pillar of Enoch relating to the 7 liberal arts and sciences. This is Masonic lore. This is Masonic legend that I'm talking about here. Restores that back to humankind. And, of course, the ritual that documents all this is the Royal Arch of Enoch. This is what I wrote my first book about. This is, without question, arguably the most important ritual in all of Freemasonry. It's certainly the most important ritual in the high degree bodies. And of course, if you look at it, just from a strictly number standpoint, this ritual is the 13th degree in the Scottish Rite, and it's the 7th degree in the York Rite. So we fast forward now to the Harry Potter movies. This is the Sorcerer's Stone, and here we have the Hermes Trismegistus analog, who of course is the headmaster, teaching the 7 liberal arts and sciences, teaching magic to his students. The educator, the educating figure, Dumbledore, and of course at Gringotts, what's the safe number? What's the vault number? Again, we're dealing with a subterranean vault here. This is coming out of the Royal Arch of Enoch. What's Dumbledore's vault number? It's 713. You can't make that stuff up. That's just incredible. That you would have that you would have this reference to the 7th degree of the York Rite, and it's a vault of all things. What's the entire Masonic ritual revolve around? A subterranean vault, this treasure vault. Here we have Hermes, Dumbledore, with his own subterranean vault with the number 713 on it. That's incredible. That's just astounding to me. And I think that for me personally, I guess it's possible that Rowling was aware of that. I find that a little unlikely. She's not a Freemason, obviously. And I don't know what her familiarity is with Masonry and the high degrees and Masonic lore and the old charges. It might be, I just don't know. It could be very high. It could be very limited. But, to me, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, that to me is, again, coming out of the world of the supernatural, the collective unconscious, something to that effect, that she would choose that number for this guy. It's just astounding. And again, you just can't make, again, this is the file cabinet of, you can't make this stuff up, that this is coming out of.
Well, you don't necessarily, I can't remember, I've read the book, and obviously I've seen the movie. But I'm wondering if maybe the vault number was put in by one of the production staff or something like that.
I believe it's in the book, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember. So.
Oh, okay. I think it's in
you're
the book.
right.
It's in the movie for certain.
Yeah, you do wonder because, while Freemasonry material is out there, I don't know if she was trying to make that analogy, but she certainly did.
And she did. That's just it.
Wonder how she did that.
It's in the movie. I know that for certain, and I'm pretty sure it's in the book. And it's that's just what I'm saying. It's incredible. I don't know what she or what Rowling knows or doesn't know, but the fact, out of all the numbers in the world she could pick to have that one, it's incredible. And again, to me, this, in my opinion, is supernatural. This is coming out of this collective unconscious, world of the supernatural where the creative process, you're just subconsciously drawing on these motifs that you're not even aware of. That's what, in my opinion, is going on.
Well, that's what I was saying before, that there is a level of consciousness creative people get to where they have access to information that they're drawing on unconsciously that has more meaning to it than they actually are meaning to put into it. And yet, while it may feel random to them, if they're in that flow, they're certainly connecting to that message that they're bringing forward. And your comparison of Dumbledore and Hermes, it has you got Gandalf too, from the Harry Potters. Gandalf and Dumbledore could be the same person, and so could Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, you can throw Kenobi into that mix too. It's the same character. It's the old graybeard wizard figure. It's the hermit card, of the tarot. It's the same. It's the same archetype. This is how, I get more asked on shows about the 9/11 stuff and about how movie is prophecy, and this is the way I try to explain it, is that again it's this supernatural force that is putting this that is is somehow being drawn upon subconsciously and is just turning up in film and in pop culture, that it's unintentional, but there it is, and the fact that it's supernatural, in my opinion, again, to me, just makes it much more interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, that it's happening, and but it is. I mean, there it is. You can see it on the screen for yourself.
Well, if you did mention that Vanilla Sky and The Matrix had almost references to 9/11. Now, those two movies were before 9/11, weren't they?
Well, right. The Matrix was came out a few years before 9/11. Vanilla Sky was filmed before 9/11, but was released after it. Vanilla Sky came out in December of 2001, but it was filmed prior to 9/11. And I mean, in Vanilla Sky, the 9/11 reference is the very end of the movie. It's over 20 years old. I guess I'll spoil it. And of course, I mean, when you watch it, I mean, it's just like, whoa. The movie takes place, I believe. I don't know if it's actually given a year. It may be 2000 or 1999. I can't remember. But at the very end of the movie, the Tom Cruise character ascends a very high skyscraper that overlooks the Twin Towers, which you can see in the background, and he has to jump off of it to receive enlightenment, to come to consciousness, as it were. If you watch that, and I mean, when you see it, yeah, I mean, it's the first thing you'll think of is 9/11, and the director talked about this, that when the movie was in post-production, the movie was shot prior to 9/11, but when the movie was in post-production, there was a lot of pressure put on him to remove that scene at the very end because of what had happened a couple months earlier, and he didn't do it. He didn't give in. He thought, no, this is the story. This has to stay in there, and I'm glad he didn't, because it's very profound. I always found, for me, this is just me speaking, I always found some of the 9/11 references leading up to the event in movies like Fight Club and Matrix and things like that. And I'm not saying this to be mean-spirited or anything, but almost like tongue-in-cheek, as it were. But the one in Vanilla Sky is very poignant. I mean, it's very depressing. It's very sad. It's very sad. And it kind of really does bring you back to the day, that all these people died. And especially when you see Tom Cruise leaping off the building, I mean, right in front of the Twin Towers. I mean, it really does bring it back to think, these people jumping off the buildings, of course. I mean, and it's very poignant. At least it is, in my opinion. I like Vanilla Sky. It's a very sad movie. It's a very good movie, I think, but it's kind of depressing. It's one of those movies, kind of like Somewhere in Time, with Christopher Reeves. It's kind of just a downer. At least it is, in my opinion. But I like the movie, and it is inherently Gnostic. It does deal with the false reality narrative. What is real, what isn't. And if you've never seen Vanilla Sky, by all means, check it out. So it's a great movie, and it's one that I analyzed in Cinema Symbolism 3.
Yeah, no, I've not seen it, but now I'm going to have to go watch it. But happily, you can call it up on your computer, and you don't have to pay it to, see the actual movie in the movie theater. Also, what I found fascinating were the in the Wizard of Oz, the initiation process and the information to Alice
Well, The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland are inherently the same story. It's the journey of enlightenment. It's the Gnostic epiphany, where Alice goes underground to receive it. Dorothy goes up and away. There's tons going on. There's tons going on in those two stories. That is esoteric. I mean, even, in Alice in Wonderland, the whole thing with painting the white bushes to red is a reference to the Rosicrucians. Who John Dees thought was behind the Rosicrucians, and of course was a mathematician. Lewis Carroll was a mathematician. A lot going on in that. Same thing with Wizard of Oz. L. Frank Baum, who wrote it, was a member of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophy movement. So, again, two stories that run parallel with each other, where the protagonist has this Gnostic awakening. Essentially, it's the entire modus operandi of the Hermetic tradition, which is to know thyself, which is, of course, what these characters wind up doing. So, those are, two stories, again, just overloaded with esoteric symbolism.
Well, I in Alice in Wonderland, I forget who it was that gave Alice I think it was it was a bug who told her to keep her perspective. And that was important for her, not only in her own size, but in her views of everything. So, amazing messages in all of this that I think it's really cool for all of us to pay attention to, and you certainly have given us food for thought all over the place, and I hope we have enticed people to get your book and read it slowly. And I mean slowly only because there's so much material and there's so much information. If you go through it too fast, you're going to have to go back and read it again. That's all. You want to kind of give the audience a way of getting a hold of you or your book or your website, and we will send them on their way to hopefully Amazon.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me on tonight. It was my pleasure to be here. It was a wonderful show as always, and I always love coming on Nightlight. It's your wonderful host, and again, it was my pleasure to be here. If you're interested in what we've been talking about tonight, go to my website, which is my name. My name is Robert W. Sullivan IV, and that's my website. It's Robert W. Sullivan IV for the fourth, the Roman numerals, or the letter I, the letter V, Roman numerals for the fourth. There are links there to purchase the book, or all my books. They're all available in print edition and in ebook form. You can get them off of all the main online retailers: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. They're all for sale there. There's upcoming information about upcoming shows that I'm going to be on, and podcasts that I'm doing. Information about me. So just go to the website. It's very easy to navigate. www.robertwsullivan.iv.com. And again, links to purchase the books. You can just go to Amazon, or just type in the name of the book, or what have you. But there's links there to buy the books, information about me, information about upcoming shows and podcasts and things that I'm doing. So just go there again, www.robertwsullivan.iv.com, and everything you need should be right there for you to navigate.
Well, I thank you so much for furthering my education tremendously, and thank you for writing the books, because they certainly open up many doors for investigation and opening our eyes as to a lot of the messages that are subtly placed in front of us when we're in a mesmerizing type of state, so that we're getting messages that we don't even know about. This way we can recognize some of them and in some ways learn from them and use them. So thank you so much. I so appreciate all your time and all your efforts, and certainly all your books.
Well, thank you, Barbara. And again, it was my pleasure to be here. And when the next one comes out, we'll do it all over again.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot again, and thank you everybody for listening. This will be up on YouTube later on, and if you're watching it on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to the show, because that's how we know you're there, and that's how we know you're listening. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. Good night, and have a good one.